Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night. And summarizing everything that been taken through the previous 12 hours, we can make a conclusion that currently Zelensky has a lot of problems. I'll remind you that yesterday the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, arrived in the United States of America with the purpose to have talks with Donald Trump, where he was planning to convince Donald Trump to continue supplying and supporting Ukraine with weapons and money. But as a result of talks, we see completely different and completely opposite results. There is now a compelling reason to restore contacts and negotiations with Putin. That was stated by Macron as a result of talks with Donald Trump. Let's discuss a few more statements made by Macron. In his interview, Macron said that any peace agreement should be not perceived as a defeat for Ukraine. The agreement must be supported by clear and long-term security guarantees. Many allied countries are ready to join the agreement and provide security guarantees in one form or another. Peacekeeping forces will not necessarily be deployed on the front line. Their location will be determined by the agreement. Furthermore, during this meeting, we had a lot of statements from the United States of America, from the 47th president of Trump. I don't see a problem with sending European troops as peacekeepers to Ukraine. I will meet with Zelensky maybe this week or next week to sign a mineral deal. This is a very important detail. Donald Trump is not going to have meeting for any other reason, only for signing a mineral deal. He is helping Ukraine in a way that no one has ever helped Ukraine before. NATO is a good thing if done right. Russia has things we need, like rare earth metals. We can end the war in Ukraine in a few weeks. I'm ready to go to Moscow at the right time. May 9 is probably too early to visit Moscow. And the most important, that as a result of this negotiation process yesterday, the United States of America made a gift to Russia. The United States does not support the anti-Russian draft resolution of the United Nations General Assembly on Ukraine and calls for its withdrawal, the American representative to the World Organization said. Another important statement about the same situation, let's discuss in details. The UN Security Council has passed a US draft resolution by a vote of 10-0, supported by China and Russia, which calls for a swift end to the war in Ukraine without placing fault on Russia. The United Kingdom, France, and 3 other members of Security Councils abstained. So we see this is the first defeat of Ukraine in this political sphere. Also, during the previous night, we got a lot of very important and very interesting statements made by the President of Russian Federation, by Putin. He was talking mainly about Zelensky. Putin on Zelensky, peace talks, and the future of Ukraine. Russia and the United States want to achieve peace in Ukraine as soon as possible, and Zelensky is preventing this. Zelensky is the only reason, according to Russia, why the war continues. Zelensky has driven himself into a dead end with a decree banning negotiations with Russia. Zaluzhny's rating is 2 times higher than Zelensky's. Zelensky is avoiding peace talks because this will quickly lead to the need to lift martial law and therefore elections. Zelensky has no chance of winning the elections. They are zero unless they are grossly rigged. Zelensky's departure plays into the hands of Ukraine itself. Zelensky is a factor in the disintegration of society, the army, and the state in the elections. So Trump wants to improve the situation in Ukraine as well as Russia. Russia is not against preserving the statehood of Ukraine. It is important for it that Ukrainian territory is not used to threaten Moscow. Russia wants to achieve peace in Ukraine and as quickly as possible. And the most important thing, that this is the thing that both the Russians and the United States of America agree and accept. For example, a part of Trump's inner circle wants to replace Zelensky with a more compliant successor as Ukrainian president. The US hopes that he will be less likely to impede US efforts to force a peace deal. You know that, of course, we have right now lots of talks about the situation, but we need to understand one thing, that martial law by Zelensky was extended by Zelensky till the 9th of May. And of course, as for now, everybody can talk a lot, everybody can do everything they want, but martial law will not be cancelled until this date. And the most important part of probably 2025 is the beginning of May, when Zelensky will have to make his vital and the most important decision of his life. He's going to make a decision whether to continue the martial law or to end it. If he ends it, most likely everything will be okay, both for him and for Ukraine. But if he decides to extend martial law for another 90 days, this can lead to unpredictable consequences both for Zelensky and Ukraine itself. Now let's discuss additional details and let's discuss the situation on the ground. Because during the previous 24 hours, despite talks, despite negotiation process, we see that the Russians continue advancing. Of course, the Russians are not advancing as they used to advance in October, September and August of 2024. Now the Russians are trying to be more careful. They try to save their soldiers, to save their personnel. During the previous 24 hours, according to different sources, the Russians managed to establish complete control over the northern part of Zhuravka, and this is already a settlement on the Ukrainian side of the border between Russia and Ukraine. This is already the Sumy region, and this is very important because we've been discussing this a lot. The main purpose and the main task of the Russians is to get as close as possible to the N07 road with the purpose to cut in cauldron the Ukrainians that are currently located in this area. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Kupinsk direction. According to different mappers, the Russians managed to improve their positions a little bit along N26 road. So currently, according to information we have, there are very heavy clashes for the settlement of Stepovo Novoselka. The Russians are trying to get as close as possible to the city of Kupinsk and to the river Oskol itself. As for the southern Kupinsk direction, the main activities took place around the road between Liman, Zarechny and Tarskoye. So we see that all these icons, all these geolocations, and the most important, the number of these events tell us that the Russians have established complete control, FPV drone control over this territory, with the purpose not to allow the Ukrainians to bring their forces in the area of Tarskoye, the last settlement that located on the Russian side of the river of Zherebets, and from the other side not to allow the Ukrainians to complete successful evacuation of wounded soldiers using the same road. So we see full control over this territory with the purpose not to allow the Ukrainians to carry out successful defense. Now let's discuss the situation in Siversk. I believe that the next days we are going to receive more and more updates in this area. The Russians managed to take under control the most important strongholds in this territory, the company's stronghold to the west, to the east of Verkhnekamensk, and the town of Bilogorovka itself. Now the Russians have no barriers to advance further in the western direction towards the settlements of Grigorovka and the settlement of Zerebryanka. The next months we are going to see exactly something like this. Furthermore, according to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians carried out several missile strikes, massive missile strikes in the area of Slaviansk and Kramatorsk agglomerations. As a result of those attacks, the Russians managed to destroy a significant number of temporary deployment points of the armored forces of Ukraine, probably of those units and forces that were involved in the defense of Serebryanka and Bilogorovka itself. So the Russians are doing everything they can with the purpose to ease the further advance of the Russian forces on the ground. As for the Pokrovsk direction, during the previous 24 hours, the situation has been changed significantly. The Russians continue digging in deeper in this area, trying to prepare themselves before possible Ukrainian counterattacks. The Russians are saying that they're expecting that during the next several days, the Ukrainians will make another attempt to counterattack with the purpose to restore control over the territories and not to allow the Russians to improve their positions around the city of Pokrovsk. So the battle is about to start, but obviously nobody knows exactly when exactly this is going to happen. As for the south Donetsk direction, the most important updates are coming from the area to the northwest of Velika Novosilovka. Different pro-Russian resources reported that during the previous night, the Russians managed to improve their positions a bit and to get as close as possible to the settlement of Burlatska itself. So let's wait and see what is going to be next. And probably the most important updates are coming these days from the Kherson and Zaporizhzhia directions. These two directions were completely silent for the previous several months, even years. So now let's discuss in details. According to information we have, the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to improve their positions in the area of Petykhatki, and some sources reported that the Russians approached the settlement of Lapkova. So let's discuss these icons. As you can see, according to different mappers, neutral, pro-Russians, everything here was captured already by the Russians. So currently the H-Russian positions goes exactly along this red line. So the battle for Lapkova either has already started or about to be started. Another important thing is that the Russians began significantly improving their positions along the shore of the Dnipro River. Today we got another video published by the Russian side. In this video we can see how the Russians using very bad weather, because Ukrainians didn't have any possibilities to use drones and artillery during this weather, attacked Ukrainian positions and improved their positions along the river of Dnipro and got as close as possible to the city of Kherson. In this video we can see how the Russians were attacking and improving their positions in this part. There are lots of statements, lots of rumors and talks that before the end of the special military operation, the Russians no doubt will try to take under control some positions and the foothold on the Ukrainian side of the river. In case if the war is going to be started in 10 years or in 20 years, the Russians want to be 100% sure that they have positions on this side of the river and that they will not need to start everything from the beginning. And this is exactly what the United States of America, the European countries, the NATO and the Western countries in Ukraine will not allow to happen. So of course let's wait and see what is going to be next. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.